In this video, we'll be pitting two captains against each other who wield the power of the ice cold. Both Shinigami have undergone significant transformation as they've mastered their abilities to heights that very few Shinigami will ever reach. Rukia, the adopted sister of Byakuya Kuchiki, who unlocked the terrifying Hakka no Togame after training with the Royal Guard, and Hitsugaya, the youngest captain in the history of the Gotei 13, whose completed Bankai transforms him into an adult who is capable of freezing not just matter, but the very concepts that govern over reality. In this video, we'll be determining what happens when these two ice wielders face off against each other at their absolute peaks. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand why Rukia vs Hitsugaya isn't even close. Let's first establish the rules of the fight. This battle will take place on neutral ground where neither of the combatants have an environmental advantage, and there's no interference from other Shinigami. It's a pure one-on-one fight, and both characters will be at their respective peaks from what we've seen within the story. So Rukia is able to achieve Hakka no Togame, her Bankai, which brings her body to absolute zero, and Hitsugaya is able to utilize his completed adult form of his Bankai, thus utilizing the full extent of Daiguren Hyorinmaru's techniques and abilities. The win conditions are straightforward, it's death or complete incapacitation. Neither fighter can retreat, and it's a battle where only one is going to walk away. We'll be now doing a basic overview of each of the characters, beginning with Rukia Kuchiki. During the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, she began as a lieutenant of the 13th Division, but as the story progressed, everything about her had transformed. After being critically wounded during the first invasion of the Quincy, she was taken to the royal palace alongside Renji and Byakuya. She had met with and trained under each of the royal guard members, specifically Tenjiro Kurinji and Ichibe, as she underwent training reserved for those with captain level potential. During her time with the royal guard, Rukia had unlocked some considerable new abilities of a Zanpakuto Sode no Shirayuki. When she returned to the Soul Society, she was no longer a capable captain, she was well and truly a captain-class Shinigami who would ultimately defeat Aznod, the same Sternritter who had devastated Byakuya during the first invasion. Her key feats are demonstrated during this battle against Aznod. This Sternritter had stolen Byakuya's Bankai, beaten him nearly to death, and wielded a specialized drift called the Fear, which can induce paralyzing terror through contact alone. During a battle with Aznod, she rendered his fear completely ineffective by achieving something physically impossible, as she brought her body to absolute zero while remaining conscious and combat capable. When Aznod had activated his Volstandig, he surrounded Rukia with thousands of fear-inducing eyes. Byakuya intervened here not to save her, but to give her the opening that she needed. With his encouragement, Rukia activated her Bankai Hakka no Togame for the very first time. We see a massive pillar of white mist erupt. This had made the Sternritter Aznod freeze solid at absolute zero instantly. His molecules ceased all movement, and he simply faded away, deleted from existence. When it comes to her signature abilities, Sode no Shirayuki's true power isn't ice manipulation, it's actually temperature manipulation. Rukia doesn't freeze moisture, she lowers the temperature of her own body and everything that she touches. Her Shikai includes 3 dances. Some no Mai creates ice pillars that encase opponents, Sugi no Mai unleashes devastating waves of flash freezing ice, and San no Mai reconstructs her blade if shattered. By controlling the reishi within her body, Rukia can stop molecular motion entirely. At minus 273 degrees Celsius, which is absolute zero, all molecular movement stops, atoms cease vibrating, matter becomes completely inert, the laws of thermodynamics break down. This is the temperature where physics itself fails. In her Shikai, she could only maintain this for 4 seconds. Hakka no Togame, her Bankai, extends this dramatically. When activated, a pillar of cold mist expands outward. Everything caught within reaches absolute zero instantaneously. Physical contact with Rukia causes immediate freezing. Her appearance totally transforms in her Bankai, as she has white hair and eyes. Her Zanpakuto becomes a transparent ice blade along with an elaborate ice kimono with formations and a half crown. She literally becomes the incarnation of winter. The drawback of a Bankai is severe, as Rukia must raise her body temperature slowly when deactivating it. If she thaws out too quickly, her tissue breaks down and she shatters like ice. This is a newly activated Bankai, so it's going to take time for her to master it, as Byakuya warned her that a blade that is wielded at the cost of the wielder's life cannot protect anything. In the other corner, we have Toshiro Hitsugaya, who represents something unprecedented. He's a child prodigy who achieved Bankai and became a captain before physical maturity. His talents had manifested in his childhood when Hyorin-maru's ice dragon would unconsciously freeze everything around him even while he was asleep. But he carried one burden: his Bankai throughout Bleach was incomplete. Despite being the strongest ice-type Zanpakuto wielder in the Soul Society, his youth had limited him. He couldn't fully control techniques like Tenso Juren because he feared accidentally killing his allies. He consistently lost battles against Aizen, Haribel, and initially the Sternritter because his body couldn't handle Daigoren Hyorin-maru's full strength. After Aizen's defeat, Hitsugaya spent up to 18 months training intensely. During the Thousand Year Blood War arc, when Kangdu had stolen his Bankai, Hitsugaya developed creative workarounds by using only his Shikai, but these weren't enough against Gerard Valkyrie. The turning point had come when Hitsugaya revealed the truth, that his Bankai doesn't end when the ice petals melt. The 12-petal flower acts as a timer counting down to the completion of his Bankai. When the final petal disappears, his body forcefully ages into his adult form. This is because his Zanpakuto recognizes that a child's frame cannot wield this magnitude of power safely. Adult Hitsugaya demonstrated abilities that operated on an entirely different level. Gerard Valkyrie had just overwhelmed Bankai Kinpachi, Byakuya Zenmon Sakura, and Hitsugaya's incomplete Bankai all at the same time. The Schutzstaffel members' power, the miracle, transformed damage into strength. He had become a giant capable of destroying sections of Varavot with just casual swings. Adult Hitsugaya changed everything instantly. When Gerard threw his massive shield, Hitsugaya froze it mid-air with a hand gesture. There was no incantation, no blade swing, it was just a raised hand. When Gerard slammed Hoffnung down, Hitsugaya dodged and cut through the blade itself. This mattered because Hoffnung possessed hope. It reflected and amplified all damage back onto attackers. Kinpachi barely nicked it and was nearly killed by his own reflected attack. But when Hitsugaya cut through Hoffnung, nothing happened. He is the mechanic that makes his completed Bankai transcendent. Anything that he freezes has all functions suspended. Not just physical properties, this is all functions, abilities, and powers. Gerard's sword didn't reflect damage because the conceptual ability of hope itself was frozen. It was nullified and rendered inert. This wasn't temperature manipulation, this was freezing the fundamental nature of what something is. When Gerard summoned his Quincy bow, Hitsugaya activated his Shikai Hyoketsu. This technique requires 4 seconds of concentration, but the results are totally worth the waiting time, as it allows him to freeze all 4 classical elements of earth, fire, water, and wind within the opponent's space. Gerard was frozen solid, unable to move. His technique was even able to freeze his holy bow that was made up of pure reishi energy. When Gerard grabbed Hitsugaya, Gerard's arm froze solid. Simply touching Hitsugaya causes instant complete freezing. This passive effect extends to everything around him, a walking zone of absolute frost where physical contact means instant defeat. After Byakuya destroyed Gerard's head, Hitsugaya froze and shattered the Quincy's torso, but the miracle regenerated Gerard into an even stronger form. The exertion caused Hitsugaya to collapse as he admitted that he was at his limit after just a brief time in his adult form. In terms of Hitsugaya's signature abilities, they all stem from Hyorin-maru, which is explicitly the strongest ice-type Zanpakuto in the Soul Society. Its Shikai alone is powerful enough that Hitsugaya could accidentally kill anyone within 12 kilometers if he is careless. The blade generates ice dragons that flash freeze anything that they touch. During the Soul Society arc, just releasing his Shikai had affected the weather, creating storm clouds and blizzards. His technique Tenso Juren represents weather control via atmospheric moisture manipulation, giving Hitsugaya battlefield dominance. His incomplete Bankai grants him ice wings, a dragon tail, and dramatically increases his freezing range. He can regenerate his Bankai indefinitely as long as moisture exists in the atmosphere. Techniques like Ryu Senka encase enemies in ice before shattering them. Hyoten Hyakaso releases snow that blooms ice flowers across opponents' bodies, trapping them in ice pillars. But like I've spoken about, the completed form of his Bankai adds everything that makes this matchup decisive. This is flash freezing on the scale of massive buildings with just mere hand gestures. The ability to passively freeze anything that makes contact with you, and most importantly, the way that Hitsugaya can critically nullify any function. Everything that he freezes loses not just physical capabilities, but abstract powers, conceptual abilities, and the fundamental nature of what he freezes is all nullified. So a sword is just gonna become metal, an ability simply stops functioning. His Shikai Hyoketsu provides a 4-second charge attack, freezing all elements in the target's location, creating an inescapable prison. But there is a catch. Hitsugaya's weakness in this form is stamina. Maintaining the complete version of his Bankai exhausts Hitsugaya rapidly. Like I mentioned, he collapsed shortly after his battle with Gerard, so extended combat in this form isn't suitable for him. Now let's compare each of their abilities. Both combatants manipulate temperature and ice, but the mechanics differ fundamentally. Rukia becomes a source of absolute cold, spreading outward through touch and proximity. When she activates Hakka no Togame, everything in the area has molecular motion reduced to 0 instantly. This isn't gradual, it's instantaneous cessation of all atomic movement. Hitsugaya manipulates environmental moisture and water, converting it to ice while controlling weather. In his completed form, this extends beyond physical matter to abstract properties. Comparing each of their Reiatsu, I think Hitsugaya's baseline is massively favourable. He wields the strongest ice Sanpakuto in the Soul Society, however Rukia's Royal Guard training elevated her to captain level. Squad Zero's selection suggests that they recognize potential exceeding her previous capabilities. Their arsenals reflect different philosophies. Rukia has limited techniques, but each is decisive. Hakka no Togame is a finishing move designed to eliminate opponents instantly. It either works immediately or she's in trouble. Hitsugaya possesses extensive techniques spanning his Shikai, his incomplete Bankai, and the completed Bankai that he wields. He adapts based on opponents, switching techniques as situations demanded. His Bankai regenerates automatically, thus giving sustainability which Rukia lacks. The critical difference, Rukia reaches absolute 0. The theoretical lower temperature limit, and nothing can be colder than that. Hitsugaya freezes concepts and functions on an abstract level, transcending simple temperature. If Rukia freezes something at absolute 0, its molecules stop moving. If Hitsugaya freezes that same thing, its molecules stop moving and its nature ceases to function. So it's that minor but very significant detail of nullification which makes Hitsugaya trump Rukia in this regard. In terms of physical combat, their strength operates at comparable levels. Both of them possess captain level physical power. Speed is also very similar, as they exist in a universe where characters casually display faster than light feats. When it comes to technique, I think it favors Hitsugaya, as his decades of experience as a captain and extensive combat experience gives him refinement that Rukia is still developing. Remember, her Bankai was just newly activated during the 1000-year Blood War arc, but the gap between these two individuals was massively closed thanks to Rukia's training with the Royal Guard. When it comes to intelligence and strategy, Rukia's intelligence manifests through analytical thinking when she's under pressure. Against Asnod's fear, she identified the weakness and developed a counter by bringing herself to absolute 0, effectively killing a body to prevent fear from entering her system. This was incredibly clever combat analysis. Hitsugaya's intelligence operates through instinct and prediction. He recognized Gin's danger before anyone suspected Aizen's conspiracy. Against Haribel, he predicted both fighters were waiting for condensation buildup. When facing Gerard, he immediately understood the miracle defied logic and adapted accordingly. Battle experience does tilt towards Hitsugaya. He's been a captain for decades, participated in the Arrancar War, he fought during the Fate Karakura Town arc, and he battled and lost against Aizen multiple times. He survived the events of the 1000-year Blood War arc, and when it comes to Rukia being at captain level, she wasn't officially assigned the title of captain until 10 years after the defeat of Yhwach. This should highlight the difference in their rank and experience. In terms of durability and stamina, Rukia's durability increased dramatically after her training, as she withstood attacks that would obliterate lesser Shinigami. However, her Bankai creates unique vulnerability. While at absolute 0, any impact could shatter her like ice. Byakuya explicitly warned about this danger when she was deactivating her Bankai. Hitsugaya's durability was sufficient to survive Haribel's Resurrection attacks and Gerard's devastating strikes. His completed Bankai adds passive defense. Anyone touching him freezes instantly. Stamina does represent a critical difference here. Rukia can continue fighting while injured, but her Bankai has a hard time limit. She can only maintain Hakka no Togame briefly before risking death because of how inexperienced she is. Hitsugaya demonstrated impressive stamina across extended fights, and his completed Bankai does drain him rapidly, but it lasts longer than Rukia's Bankai, as she will reach a limit where she can safely operate at temperatures of absolute zero. The activation speed of Rukia's Bankai is critical. Hakka no Togame manifests immediately. She has no charge time. Rukia activates it and everything freezes. Asnot had barely any time to evade or counter it, hence why he lost. The weakness of the Bankai is its duration. Rukia can't maintain it indefinitely, and when she deactivates it, she needs to do so slowly, and during this time she's defenseless. If her opponent survives the initial freeze of a Bankai, then she's in serious trouble. The completed form of Hitsugaya's Bankai offers layered advantages. The function nullification means Hitsugaya can potentially freeze Sode no Shirayuki itself, suspending Rukia's ability to use a Bankai. His passive aura makes closing distance suicidal. His flash freezing prevents Rukia from establishing close quarters scenarios where Hakka no Togame is most effective. Shikai Hyoketsu's 4-second charge time gives Hitsugaya a reliable counter to Rukia's activation. If she attempts Hakka no Togame, he can counter by activating Shikai Hyoketsu at the same time, freezing all elements in a location and potentially disrupting her Bankai from manifesting. The complete form regenerates automatically, Rukia's doesn't. His slightly better stamina means that he can outlast Rukia's limited duration of her Bankai. So what happens when each of these clash? Rukia activates Hakka no Togame first, catches Hitsugaya within the area of effect. His adult form likely provides him with resistance, as he passively exudes temperatures equal to his ice. But you have to wonder, does this extend to true absolute zero where molecular motion ceases completely? Hitsugaya's function nullification gives him the decisive edge here. If his completed Bankai can freeze Gerard's conceptual sword ability, it can presumably affect Rukia's temperature manipulation. He could theoretically freeze Sode no Shirayuki itself, or even freeze the concept of temperature manipulation that defines Rukia's power, completely nullifying her ability to reach absolute zero. If he activates Shikai Hyoketsu while Rukia attempts Hakka no Togame, the freezing of all 4 elements in a location might prevent her Bankai from appearing. Her technique requires controlling the reishi in her body to lower molecular motion. If the elements composing that space are frozen, including the spiritual energy that she's manipulating, then her activation might fail entirely. On the other hand, if Rukia activates first and catches Hitsugaya off guard, the question becomes whether if his resistance can protect him long enough for him to escape. Given that Hitsugaya collapsed from exhaustion after brief use of his completed form against Gerard, constantly resisting absolute zero while maintaining his completed form might accelerate his energy depletion catastrophically. Are there any wildcards or X factors in this matchup? When it comes to Rukia, her wildcard is commitment. She achieved absolute zero knowing that it could kill her. That willingness to sacrifice herself for victory for the sake of her duty can overcome technically superior opponents. If she recognizes Hitsugaya's advantages, she might close the distance regardless of his passive aura and activate Hakka no Togame at point blank range where evasion is impossible. But then you have Hitsugaya's wildcard, which is experience, instinct, and his insane talent. He survived against opponents who should have killed him for decades. His analytical abilities might let him recognize the danger of her Bankai before she activates it. He could create distance using flash freezing, preventing close range scenarios where Hakka no Togame becomes unavoidable for him. Hitsugaya controls weather and all battlefield moisture, manipulating conditions to his advantage. Rukia has no equivalent environmental manipulation. Her Kido proficiency provides binding options, but his passive freezing aura would freeze any Kido projectiles before they make contact, thus negating her supplementary abilities. So when it comes to the final verdict, physical combat is relatively even with both of them, with the slight advantage going to Hitsugaya. In terms of intelligence and strategy, it favors Hitsugaya thanks to his experience. Durability is comparable, but Rukia's Bankai creates some unique vulnerabilities. Again, with her having to slowly deactivate it unless she wants wants to risk shattering herself. Stamina slightly favors Hitsugaya too, and the most decisive category in this matchup and in most anime and manga matchups, it's the ultimate abilities. How do they fare against each other? Hakka no Togame is devastating. It's capable of instantly killing most Bleach opponents, but it's a finishing move with a hard time limit. Rukia must defeat opponents quickly or risk death. With the completed form of Daiguren Hyorin Maru bringing nullification to the table, it allows Hitsugaya to potentially freeze Rukia's Zanpakuto itself, suspending Rukia's Bankai usage. And then don't forget about his passive aura, making close quarters combat a death sentence. His flash freezing prevents this scenario too, and his 4-second Shikai Hyokatsu counters her Bankai activation sequence, and his greater stamina outlasts her limited duration of her Bankai. So yeah, the ultimate abilities, it's clear that Hitsugaya's completed Bankai wins. Rukia's path to victory requires perfect execution. She needs to activate her Bankai before Hitsugaya establishes battlefield control. She must catch Hitsugaya with that initial attack of her Bankai before he evades or counters it. The stars literally need to align for Rukia to have a chance here, whereas Hitsugaya's path to victory is a lot more forgiving. He can establish battlefield control through weather manipulation, he can maintain a distance from Rukia using superior mobility, he can counter her activation with Shikai Hyokatsu, he could potentially freeze Soda no Shirayuki through function nullification, and he has multiple overlapping strategies, and any one of them is going to secure victory for Hitsugaya. Scenarios where Rukia wins do exist, but they are very few and far in between. This matchup heavily favors Hitsugaya. I ran a poll on the community tab of the channel asking who would win in a 1 vs 1, Rukia with her Bankai or Hitsugaya with his adult form. As of making this video, we had 32,000 votes. 19% had thought that Rukia wins, while a whopping 81% thought that Hitsugaya in his adult form would win. Finally, we have a conclusion that I can completely agree upon, but we have reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your thoughts about Rukia versus Hitsugaya? If there is anything that I've forgotten to mention within this video that could possibly turn the tide of the battle, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.